Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. You know, I've lived in this province for 30 years and I've never seen what I'm seeing right now. And I'm becoming very concerned that we're being lied to about how serious the situation is. This is a disaster waiting to happen. This is dry, old, dead grass. There's no new growth right now. There's yellows, browns, a little bit of green, but not a whole lot. For this time of year, that is incredibly rare. We have had some unseasonably high temperatures this year. We've blown all records off the charts, especially for consecutive hot days. So not so much in the hottest temperatures ever recorded, even though we've had those too, but the bigger effect is in the consecutive high heat days. So how many days have we logged plus 30? Well, the next 2 weeks, it's supposed to be plus 30 every day, which wouldn't be that exceptional if we hadn't already had the season that we've already had, if it hasn't been so dry, if there hasn't been forest fires left and right. And for the last 5 to 7 years, I don't ever recall a season that we've had in those years without forest fire smoke. And years prior to that, I don't think I've seen forest fire smoke. You know, except when I was, out working in the bush, but never in the city that I lived in. So something is going on. And a lot of people seem to take solace in this tinfoil hat idea that everything is controlled. Something happens, oh, it was controlled, it was planned that way, blah, blah, blah. You guys need to understand that the people who are pulling the puppet strings, they put their pant legs on one leg at a time, just like you. They don't control everything. They're not omniscient. They have information and maybe a little bit of technology at their fingertips, but they don't control every single thing. Do they exploit everything to their benefit? Do they try to milk every bad situation for what they can? Sure, they probably do that, but they're just people. And now imagine you're at the helm of this sinking ship in the middle of the cosmos, in the deep darkness of space. You are the most privileged, okay? You're the most powerful monkey on the rock. And you know that the shit's about to hit the fan. You know that the crops are about to start potentially failing. The dominoes are going to start falling year after year. What do you do? How do you position yourself? If you guys ever seen that movie Interstellar, and this isn't the main thesis of this video, but it's just something for you to think about. It's funny how art imitates life, or life imitates art, and vice versa. You see Blue Origin with Jeff Bezos. You see Elon Musk with SpaceX. You see Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic. All things I support. I'm a firm believer in technology. I support technology. I'm a futurist. A lot of my investments are in companies which are, thinking about the future and how we can resolve a lot of these problems. But when you really look at it, it starts to look like the movie Interstellar. You have crop failures. Okay, you have all these changes. You have all this compounding calamity on Earth. Meanwhile, all the billionaires are trying to take off into outer space. I mean, Jeff Bezos wants to build Elysium. He's talked about it. He showed people the diagrams of what he wants to build in outer space. Okay, so it's not even a joke anymore. It's not even a meme. It's the real deal. What if the situation is so bad right now, and that's why they're rushing to get the hell off the planet, to leave everybody else behind? Now, again, I don't want that to be the primary takeaway from this video. The primary takeaway from this video is that this is unusual. This is not normal. The last 5 to 10 years have not been normal. I've been saying it for years now, and I get a lot of flack. I've lost a lot of subscribers who are subscribed to this idea that this whole climate business is just a big ploy to mine the population for carbon taxes. Look, we know that every disaster is going to be exploited by power, whoever the power broker is, whether it's a corporation or government. We know that they're going to take every opportunity they can to somehow profit or benefit from the situation. We know that. That doesn't mean that those things are not happening. And the terrifying thought for a lot of people that you have to face at some point, because this is going to come to your doorstep soon. The terrifying thought that you're going to have to consider is that there is nobody in charge. The only person in charge is you. The only person responsible for your well-being, for your survival, and indeed for your ability to thrive on this planet is you. It's easy to point the blame and say, oh, they're just making all this stuff up, when the reality is slapping you right in the face. Year after year. Does it sell news headlines? Okay, does it make for some good clickbait thumbnails? Absolutely. Does that mean it's not happening? No. I am truly worried about what's happening right now, because if I was in charge, I would not want to tell the population. I'm just being brutally honest. My objectivist Ayn Rand, whatever you want to call it, is coming out. I would not want to tell the population if I knew that this was going to get worse. Because think about what happens if you take this up in order of magnitude. If you let this compound for a few years and project that outward, one crop failure after another. Imagine what the panic would be, okay? You wouldn't be able to maintain control of society. There was a video that I just put out that I would encourage you to go see, which YouTube basically stopped in its tracks, okay? It was a collection of condensed news bites from around the world talking about the situation that we find ourselves in right now with the record temperatures, the record wildfires, the droughts, and all the rest. And at the end of that video, there's a woman talking about how her well has run dry and how she now appreciates water. And she had a quote that I actually edited out of that video. And she said, things were going really good. We had what we needed until we didn't. I can't remember the exact quote. It was something along the lines of, we were perfectly content until we weren't. Everything was going great until it wasn't. When you're reaching the bottom of that well, maybe your pumps have to work a little bit harder. Maybe the water gets a little murkier. Maybe your filters have to do a bit more work. But by and large, things are good until they aren't good anymore. And you don't want to wait until the panic sets in, because then it's too late. It's just like the stock market, right? When people start FOMOing into something and you get the urge to buy the stock, that's usually when it's too late. You've usually already missed the iceberg underneath. And now you're at the peak and you're likely going to be left holding the bag. The same thing is going to happen with a lot of people with these droughts. Food prices are going to go up drastically in the fall. And when I look out to these fields, it feels like early spring because there's no green. It's just a sea of yellow and there's barely any bugs, which is unheard of in these parts for this time of year. There's bugs. I mean, if you came up here from California, you'd be swatting and doing all that kind of stuff. Like you usually see me dancing around on camera. That's because there are a few bugs, but nowhere near the amount that we're accustomed to around here, where in certain parts of this country, if you're not soaked in DEET, you're going to be unrecognizable when you come out to the bush, even by your closest family member, which is why I recommend that people stockpile bug spray, because if you want a great barter item for SHTF, which is going to last forever, bug spray is where it's going to be at. I have never seen anything like this. And for that reason, I'm really starting to get worried. Okay, what if things are so bad and they're just not telling us how bad it actually is? A lot of people like to conspiracy theorize in the other direction, saying, oh yeah, it's all a plan to control the food and this, that, whatever. But what if it's not? What if things are actually far worse and far out of the powers that be control than we think or than we are told? Yeah, we know, we get Greta, we get a few people, talking about it once in a while, but it's completely inconsequential. Absolutely nothing has happened, but at an incremental snail-like pace. And according to the best scientific data, the warming that we are experiencing right now is a result of emissions and heat which was generated 20 and 30 years ago. So that means that this is only going to accelerate from this point forward. Now, we can patch the ship up. We can hold it together. We can weather some storms, but we can only weather so many storms before the dominoes just start to fall. And you get one guy's crop who fails, okay, fine. The other side of the country might have a bumper crop. Great. But what happens when that gets smaller and smaller and there's more and more crop failures. What happens when these things start to compound year over year? And this is in the absence of the pandemic. This is in the absence of inflation. The numbers that just came out, I believe 5.4% for the month of May, or was it the month of June? So we're already seeing an increased consumer price index, specifically with regards to food, among other things. But compounding upon that is going to be crop failures. You're starting to see unrest around the world. Look at what's happening around the world in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in South Africa. This is exactly what happened post-2008. And it happens because of food scarcity. That's the primary thing. It's the thing they don't like to report about in the news. But I'm telling you right now that I am seriously getting concerned about what is going on right now. It's starting to look like some of the doomsaying climatologists were right. Some of them I've had on this channel before. As you may know, Dr. Guy McPherson is one of them. I think a lot of us broached the topic of SHTF almost with like childlike amazement. But at some point, when you realize that it's actually happening, that amazement can quickly become anxiety. And I think there's some people who, like myself, even though you would think that even though this is all I think about because it's my job to do so, you would think that I would be used to the idea of what's going on right now, but I'm not. Because there's a part of me that in order to do this, I've had to repress the reality of it. Otherwise, I would just get way too depressed. I would feel very hopeless if I full on confronted the worst case scenario in this situation. Now, cycles happen in nature, but the scientific data seems to show that this is not cyclical. There have been droughts throughout the years, and there's been places that have been in droughts that have recovered. There are certain types of terraforming that we can experiment. There's even geoengineering that we can experiment with to try to make the situation better. But it's what seems to happen is that when we try to make a situation better, there's always an imbalance because nature has its own set of prerogatives, its own set of priorities and protocols, prerogatives, priorities, and protocols. And unfortunately, we can seldom nestle ourselves in and perfectly manipulate it so that there's no unintended consequences. So, for example, desalination. I've thought for the longest time, why not just set up a bunch of solar farms and desalinate the oceans? Use that for the crops. Yeah, it's expensive, but if you get power from solar energy, you should be able to do it. But there's a consequence that not a lot of people think about. It actually has the effect of heating up the oceans more. The oceans, FYI, are already heating up as a result of melting Arctic ice and a bunch of other things. But desalination heats up the water. It increases the salinity of the ocean, which is going to make it more troubling for the ecosystems within the ocean to thrive. And of course, all of this is going to have some unintended consequence down the road. Nobody talks about how the places where all these droughts are occurring are also places where a lot of the water is exported in the form of produce. Look at California. How much water do they export in produce? I don't know how much water it takes to make an almond, but apparently it takes a lot. And when you're shipping almonds overseas to these other countries, you're essentially shipping the water out. Or fruit is a better example, where there's actual water contained in the fruit and you're shipping that out. You do that year after year after year. Okay, it starts to tip the balance. And it doesn't take much to tip the balance, to tip the scales. It's not about completely toppling the balance. It's just about tipping the balance. 1% is all it takes to tip the balance. It's just like 1 degree is the difference between something freezing and something being liquid. Okay, so a lot of people have this idea that, we're so small, we can't have an effect on the planet. I always say, look at a virus. How small is a virus relative to your body? All of the virus in your body would probably, if you put it all in a petri dish, you wouldn't even be able to see it with a naked eye. You'd still have to use a microscope to see it. Yet it can kill you, okay? The same thing is the case with the planet's biomes. Now, yes, the planet's going to be fine in the words of George Carlin, but a lot of stupid people run with that and think that, okay, that means that we're going to be fine. No, the planet's fine. Remember the second part of the phrase, it's the people that are screwed. All I'm saying, guys, is that you need to prepare for this terrifying reality, this becoming worse every year, and them not telling you about it. Yeah, they're going to give the platitudes, they're going to pretend like they're doing something about it, but nothing really that consequential, and nothing that doesn't, of course, come at the infringement of your personal rights and freedoms, which it's going to. So anyways, guys, let me know how things are in your region. I know there's been flooding in certain places. I know that some places are having bumper crops, as is going to be the case. But the global average is going to be one right now, which is not boding well for the future of our species. So I strongly recommend you do whatever you can to prepare for potential shortages and the socioeconomic fallout which could ensue thereafter. So thanks for watching. Stay safe. Use every moment of every day right now to improve yourself, to improve your position for this. It's not what may be coming, it's what's here. Okay, guys? Use it while you can. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.